Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. Hey, Lou.
How are we doing today?
Good, good. We're going to be talking about chapter 12, verses 10, 11, and 12. Hope you've been listening and catching up so far, my friends. So, verse 10 says, if you are incapable of even abhyas or practice, regard my actions as supreme. Regard my actions as supreme, God's actions as supreme. Even by performing actions for my sake, you shall attain perfection. So there's two key things that we need to take out of this. One is, if you say I can't practice, I can't do abhyas, I can't do self meditation, which was in verse 8, then, and you said I'm going to try and step it down, as in verse 9, even if you're not able to do that, then just regard what I do, my actions, as supreme. And if you do your actions for my sake, then you shall attain perfection in the long run. So what does this mean, regard my actions as supreme? That's an important concept here. In most religions, the same thing comes up. What is regard my actions, God's actions, as supreme? We take a lot of things for granted in our day-to-day life. From the moment we're born, we have oxygen. Everything is just perfect in the air. No matter how much we as humans try to pollute this atmosphere, we still have the right consistency of oxygen and all the other gases in the air, so we can breathe. We don't have to pay a penny for it, no price that we have to pay. Food is there, trees come up, the sun comes up exactly when it's supposed to come up, sets when it's supposed to come up. That means the earth is spinning for millions and millions of years, round and round on its axis, the way it's supposed to, goes around. The earth goes around the sun. Sorry, I said the wrong thing. The earth goes around on its axis and then goes around the sun in the right way. I was actually thinking about the fact that I talked to my grandson about the fact that the sun does revolve. Most people don't know this. And I was telling my grandson that the sun revolves around the center of the universe. I said, and then I thought he might not know what that was. And I said, the center of the galaxy, or of the Milky Way.
Right.
And he said, Papi, you know that both those things are the same, right? I said, whoa, you know that? So I was surprised. But I was telling him about how the sun moves. But anyway, going back to what we were talking about, the earth revolves around its own axis, revolves around the sun in a very precise manner, to the exact second and minute. Can you imagine such a huge earth revolving exactly as it's supposed to? Just incomprehensible. You get a cut, you heal it, it heals. You get an injury, it heals. How? You eat something, even if it's not the right thing for you to eat, your stomach digests it. Bacteria inside you do its job, to whatever it's supposed to do. The body, the mind, everything working is so precise. Those are all considered the actions of Brahman. This life force within us is Brahman. This does everything Brahman is supposed to do just perfectly. If you can't meditate and become one with Brahman, or become the Brahman that you really are, Aham Brahmasmi, then just regard his actions as supreme. Regard my actions as supreme, is what he says. In the Christian prayer, it says, thy will be done, not my will be done. Right, Lou?
Right.
What is that prayer? Oh God, who art in heaven, forgive. Well, say it again. I know it well.
Forgive our transgressions as we forgive those who transgress against us, and then goes on to thy will be done. It's a common closing to a statement.
Yeah, I learned it as trespass against us, not transgress against us.
Oh yeah, trespass. Yeah,
trespass against us.
As I said,
thy
I'm a
will be
Catholic,
done.
so yeah.
Okay, so not my will be done. So all religions have this, where you regard God as supreme. You regard God as supreme, and whatever he does, you do what is prescribed by Brahman to do. Just play your role in life according to the rules that are set by Brahman, is what Krishna says over here. Find out what your role is first. then do exactly that. If you're a physician, you do what you're supposed to do in life, taking care of patients. Have your goal set as doing the right thing for your patients. If you're an engineer, you do the right thing for the bridges and buildings that you're building. You do the right thing. If everything you do is the right thing, the right way, according to God's will, then you just follow your role. Now, in the Gita, Arjun, who is like us, an ordinary lay person, a citizen, he is a warrior, right? He's an accomplished warrior, famous warrior, known all over the world, never lost a battle, not afraid, whatever. But when it comes to killing his own relatives on the opposite side, he puts down his sword, says, I can't fight. And what Krishna is telling him is, look, these are evil relatives of yours. They've taken over and done a lot of bad things for the country and for the citizens of this country. You've tried to negotiate with them, tried to talk to them to stop doing this. They're not listening. You have to fight. They're challenging you to fight. You can't lay down your weapons, because then they'll just do whatever they want to do, and this world will go to an immoral way. So you, the people who are not warriors, are counting on you to defend them. Just like when terrorists break into our country or our homes, you have to defend it. You can't just say, well, I'm a man of peace, I don't want to fight. So everybody has their role to do. A doctor has to take care of his patients, an engineer has to build his bridges and building, a warrior, a policeman, an army person has to defend the country and the local people, and he has to fight. So you have to just play your role, but play it in the way that you're supposed to for the actions of God, who is supreme. Find out what your role is, fight for the country, for justice, fight to remove these evil people from power, maintain this harmony, is what Krishna says to Arjuna. For the rest of us, you just do your karma and do it with God in mind. Don't worry about your mind and intellect for meditation at that point. Just do what you're supposed to do. And if you keep focusing on saying, I'm doing this because it's a higher cause, whatever it is that you're doing, your mind and intellect will just start focusing on that higher cause. So when you do your actions for me, he says, even by performing actions for my sake, you shall attain perfection. So when you're doing whatever you're doing, taking care of your patients, and you say, I'm doing this because I ought to do this, this is the right thing to do, God has given me this opportunity, I am going to do it, your mind and intellect will follow. You're not going to say, well, it's another $100 in my pocket, it's another, so much. That's not the attitude you should have. So when you do your actions for me or any organization, company, community, whatever, then the mind will have a thought of God, and you will dedicate your actions to God. Your mind and your intellect will go towards it automatically. So that's verse 10.
Mm-hmm.
Lou, any comments you want? Anything that I left out? Or
No, it sounds like you're surrendering to what to Atman's plan, to God's plan here. You're put there for a certain purpose. Instead of serving yourself, serve that purpose.
Yeah. So your first goal is to try to become self-realized. That is your whole purpose on being born, is to get to that point. But if you cannot do it, then try to achieve that path by, as you were saying, Lou, doing what you need to do along with God's actions being supreme.
Mm-hmm.
So verse 11 says, if you are unable to do even this, so each time he's going down one level, then
Right.
taking refuge in the union with me, renounce the fruit of all action and control yourself. So again, if you tease out every word in here,
Mm-hmm.
there's quite a few very important words here. So let's start with the fruit of all action. Often misunderstood. Now, when you do something, anything, from the moment you act, when the moment you open your eyes in the morning, every action, including opening your eyes, has a fruit, right? You open your eyes, and as long as your eyes are able to see, you see things. So
Right.
there's a fruit, there's a reward for doing an action. Opening your eyes in an action, seeing what you see after you open your eyes is the fruit of the action. Any act you do has a reward. That reward can be something that you wanted, or it can be something that you were not looking for, right? You make an investment. That's an action.
Right.
That investment could go in your favor and you get rewarded, or it goes against you and you are not rewarded. You get take a loss. So these are the dvandvas, the pairs of opposite. Any fruit of action can be something that you like or something that you don't like, a gain or a profit. A profit or a loss.
Hmm.
So he's saying here, renounce the fruit of action. So what does renounce? I forgot. We said that we were going to do this in the last episode. We'll do it now. Renounce the fruit of action. So what does renounce mean? I will do it soon because it's a longer explanation. If I forget, Lou, would you please remind me?
Hmm.
Control your senses. It's self-controlled, because in order to do this, you have to control the five senses, five sense organs, and your five organs of action, not just the sense organs. Taking refuge in the union with me, meaning you know that you're going to be united with Brahman, you give yourself up to that, taking refuge in that. Act for my sake, not just to fulfill your own desires. So, whatever you're doing, as an engineer, you're building something, you say, I'm building this. In India, a lot of the buildings and bridges, before they're done, a person does puja to it, does a worship to it, and says, okay, this is God. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it to the best of my ability because I'm acting for your sake, God, not just to fulfill my own desires. The fact that it also gets fulfilled, your desires, that's separate. You have to take that as what is known as prasad. Prasad is when you do something, the leftover that you get back is called prasad. Isn't that the same in church, Lou? That you go and the priest gives you back something to put in your mouth?
Communion. No.
Communion.
Yeah.
At the end of every mass, they give you something. Anyway, in the Hindu temples, let's say you go and you offer apples and bananas to God, then the priest takes it, puts it in at the feet of the murti, and then takes one apple or piece of banana and gives it back to you, and you say thank you, and you eat it as an offering from God back to you. So Krishna says, fulfill your desires, no doubt about it, but keep the goal of self-realization always in your mind. Your actions should not be dictated by only your desires with the wish for the fruit. That instead should not be there. Instead, shift your attention to the union with the self while you're working so that you get that fruit also, but that should not be your wish. While you're fulfilling your desires, keep the self as your goal and not just getting the reward. Whenever your mind shifts towards the desires or the fruit, let the intellect bring it back to the self. Control yourself, control your senses, control your organs. Whatever your work is, whatever you're doing, accept the results as prasad, as an offering from God. It can be positive or it can be negative. It can be dvandvas. You're working for God, so the result is not for you. Just if you keep that in mind. So that is verse 11, where
Hmm.
it's again saying, if you can't be self-realized, you can't successfully meditate, then just focus on what actions I'm doing as God, and you just come along for the ride and don't disrupt anything. Verse 12 says, and here this can be a little confusing, says, better indeed is knowledge than practice. Better than knowledge is meditation. Better than meditation is renunciation of the fruit of action. Little confusing,
Yeah.
especially because what it's saying is, first, at the lowest level is practice. You just keep practicing. Like you were saying, Lou, you're struggling with this meditation. And he says, at the lowest level, just keep practicing. It'll come. But he's saying don't do just an empty practice. Whether you're going to a temple or a church and you're just going there emptily saying, okay, I'm go there, I light a candle, I say a prayer that I don't understand the meaning, and then I say, God, please let my boss give me a promotion this week, and you leave. That's just an empty, superstitious practice. You have to, he says, the next higher level is knowledge. By studying what we're doing now, scriptures, you understand what it is that you're doing when you go there. When you go to a temple or a church or a mosque, what is it that you're actually going there for? not to bargain, not to negotiate, not to beg, not to cry and say, please give me this, but you're going there with the knowledge of why you're looking to do this. Then so you're practicing, but you're practicing it with knowledge. That's a slightly higher level than just practicing. Beyond that, it's just, you don't even have to go to a temple. Just stay at home and meditate. That's a higher level. As we were saying in verse 8, how meditation benefits you. And now, we always thought that he was saying meditation is the highest level. But here he says renunciation is at a higher level than even meditation. He says, better than meditation is renunciation of the fruit of action. Okay? We talked about renunciation, fruit of action. So the fruit of meditation is what? You want to become self-realized. So if you're sitting there, what he's saying here is you've got to renounce that fruit of the meditation. If you're constantly thinking, oh my
Yeah.
God, I'm getting there, I am able to successfully keep my mind completely blank for X period of time. When I first started, I wasn't able to do it for a second. Now it's a little bit longer, I'm getting there. I'm dropping my vasanas, my desires. I'm able to renounce the I-ness, the me-ness in me. Then I'm going to get there. You're excited. That renunciation is necessary, because otherwise that desire for that fruit of the action of the meditation disrupts your entire meditation. So higher than meditation is the renunciation of the fruit of action of that meditation. So any scriptural practice is mere rituals if the practitioner does not know the meaning of that, what he's doing it, this meditation, and the purpose of it. The intellect has to give the approval, otherwise the prayer is rejected by the intellect. As you're doing it, if the intellect buys into it, understands it because of the knowledge, you're successful. Otherwise, it's just an exercise. So whether you're looking for health or status or the state of happiness, knowledge, faith, power, everything we have, whatever any of these, your physique, your health, your status, is all a result of our past actions, right? If you exercise, you're going to be in good health. If you don't exercise, you're going to be not in good health. So you accept the present moment. Don't resist it and respond to it according to your present age. You can read. So in order to get that experience, you can read all you want about how does it taste to eat a delicious custard. And people can rave about it on the internet to say, wow, this custard, I had it, you're never going to believe it tastes like this, it tastes like this. Or a wine that they say it has hints of raspberry and cherry and apple and fragrance of roses. But until you drink it and experience it, you don't know what that taste is. You don't know what that flavor is of the custard. You can read all about it. Similarly, you can only experience it and find out the result of that experience through the meditation, direct experience. You cannot know what it feels like. You can only become the Atman. Hearing about it, reading about it is not good enough.
Right.
Now, let's talk about renunciation before I forget. So renunciation means you renounce one of two things. You renounce the minus. So, and you renounce the I, the two things. Minus is this is mine, this belongs to me. And everything else that you don't say is mine belongs to somebody else. By doing that very fact, by doing that, you're actually causing a division between you and others. Whereas what the lords, Brahmans, infrastructure that he's devised is that everything is one. It's like the left arm saying, well, I'm the left arm. I'm not part of the right arm. I'm not part of the shoulder. I'm not part of the body. Everything is one body. In order for us to work unified, the body, the whole cells, everybody has to work together without division, saying, this is me, this is you, this is mine, this is yours. Only then can the two hands work together if you both say, I'm part of the body. If you say, no, I'm better because I'm the right hand or I'm the left hand, it doesn't work like that. So you have to give up that minus. That's number one. That's the renunciation. You can only renounce that which you possess. You can't renounce something that you don't possess. So you have to first renounce what you possess, renounce that which you own, possess with, and that doesn't mean only wealth and possessions, okay? You can renounce your power, you can renounce your relatives. You know, people say, well, I'm attached to my wife, I'm attached to my kids, I'm attached to my grandchildren, I'm attached. The more, this is all mine, my grandson, my granddaughter.
Right.
You know, you've got to be able to detach yourself. I'm not saying that you just say, forget it, I don't know who these people are, don't even want to look at them.
Right.
That's not the point. You say, you don't become attached to them. They're separate individuals in and of themselves, existing in and of themselves. So let them exist, let them go on, let them do what they have to do without you thinking they're mine. You know, why should you feel closer to your grandson than to somebody else's child or somebody else's granddaughter? Everybody should be the same, as they should be according to God's rules. Then the I is the little ego. You identify with your body. I own this house, you say. I own this house. But you're only here on this earth for a fixed finite period of time. The house will stay on. You'll die.
Right.
The house will be sold by your heirs to somebody else. Somebody else comes, Mr. Jones, Mr. Brown, and says, now I own this house. So you're gone. That I is just a little I. Recognize that. That I is just, renounce that I. When you're meditating, when you renounce that ego, when you renounce that I, only then will you realize the Atman. And it is said in the scriptures that the minute you give up that I-ness, you renounce that I-ness, that minus, you automatically and immediately become one with the Atman. In the Ashtavakra Gita, there's a different Gita. This is the Bhagavad Gita. There's another Gita called the Ashtavakra Gita, in
Hmm.
which King Janaka was the father of Sita. Sita is the wife of Ram. King Janaka asks this sage, Ashtavakra, he says, how long does it take to become self-realized? And he says, it is faster than, it takes less time to become self-realized than it would take for you to alight onto your horse. So what he means is the minute, the second you give up your I-ness and your minus, you become self-realized instantly.
Hmm.
But it takes a long time to get there, to the
Yeah.
point where you can renounce your I-ness and the false notion of ego. Ego is not necessarily pride. I'm proud. That's okay. But I-ness, meanness, has to be given up. Now, renunciation. There's two or three other stories that I want to tell you if we have a few minutes, Lou. One is the story about Ram when he wanted to get married, and his wife, future wife Sita, her father was King Janaka. He had a big get together of all the princes and kings that came together to say, listen, who can marry my daughter? And one of the tests, he had a few. One of the tests was there was a large bow on this table, heavy. People couldn't even lift it. He says, whoever can break this bow or lift this bow can marry my daughter. All these very strong people came, kings, and they tried to even lift it. They couldn't lift it. Ram was a very humble person, self-realized. He had a guru, a teacher. And the teacher said, I bless you. As a dictate from me, break this bow. Pick it up. And he went without any ego. The difference being that he did not have any ego. He says, I'm not doing it because I'm not saying I'm strong. My guru wants me to pick this up and break it. He very easily picked it up, broke it exactly in half. Now, what that symbolizes is that he had no I-ness or minus in this. He picked it up saying, I'm doing this in the service of my guru, broke it, broke the bow exactly in half, meaning he held his past, held his future on both sides, future and past, broke both his future, past into the present and said, I broke it. So these are all symbolic kinds of things. Now, renunciation also applies to various other things. It's not just, be there, Lou? Sorry.
Yes. Go ahead.
Renunciation means, if I give and cigarettes. I give up alcohol and cigarettes. I say, you know what? From now on, I'm renouncing alcohol and cigarettes. You say, wow, that's pretty good. How long have you been drinking and smoking? So, no, I've never touched alcohol or cigarettes, but I'm renouncing it. That's
Yeah.
not real renunciation. Renunciation is something where you are addicted to it. You find it hard to give it up. That's what you give up. If you, there's another kind of renunciation known as funeral renunciation, smashana, and that, when you are in the cemetery or your loved one is being cremated, you are so sad. You say, you know what? I just renounce the world. I don't care for anything. I don't want to get dressed. I'm growing my beard long. It's easy to renounce at that time, funeral renunciation. It's when the grief wears off, are you able to still renounce everything? So renunciation is something that, is a much longer discussion that we can have. But for now, it is important, as he says, even higher than meditation is renunciation of the fruits of all of your action. So let's stop here. Now, the next verse, which is verse 13 onwards in chapter 12, begins the discussion of the 35 qualities of a bhakta, 35 qualities of a devotee. Now, as I was learning this, we learned that these are qualities of a person who's devoted to God. This whole chapter is one of self-realization. These qualities are of a self-realized person. 35 qualities of what does a self-realized person look like? What does he behave like? What does he talk like? How does he carry himself? It's a fascinating 35 qualities, fascinating. And what I'd like to do, Lou, is to have each of those 35 qualities as an episode.
Oh,
We won't devote half hour or an hour to each quality. If some of them we may be able to do just in 5 or 10 minutes, but I'd still like to have it as an episode, because then people can, as they find themselves being allied with one particular quality, they can go back to that. Because
right.
if you start doing just focusing on one or two of those qualities, you will find that the rest follow.
Excellent. I look forward to it.
Lou, are you there?
Yes, I look forward to it. We're
I
having
can't hear you.
having a little bit of a signal
Anyway,
problem.
thank you very much, friends. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you next time.